First contact and confusion. Admiral Vexthor of the Galactic Empire stood aboard the bridge of the Eternal Silence, his scaled fingers drumming against the obsidian command console. The massive dreadnought had emerged from hyperspace moments ago, ready to claim yet another sector for the Empire. But what appeared on his U-screen made his secondary heart skip a beat. 3 small vessels hung in space before him, their designs unlike anything recorded in the Empire's vast databases. They looked almost primitive, with their rounded edges and colorful markings. One of them even appeared to have what looked like string lights wrapped around its hull. "Unidentified vessels," he broadcast, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 conquered worlds. "You have entered restricted Imperial space. Submit to our authority or face immediate destruction." The response came in the form of music. Not the martial anthems or ceremonial dirges the Empire used for communication, but something light and bouncing that made several of his bridge crew unconsciously tap their feet. "Oh, hey there." A cheerful human voice cut through the melody. "I'm Captain Maya Rodriguez of the research vessel, Curiosity's Child. Love what you've done with your ship. Very intimidating. The whole black and spiky aesthetic really works for you." Vexthor's scales bristled. In 3 centuries of conquest, no one had ever complimented his ship's aesthetics during first contact. "You dare mock the might of the Galactic Empire?" "Mock? No way. I'm being totally sincere. We're actually huge fans of dramatic entrances. Watch this." Before Vexthor could respond, the smallest of the 3 vessels began to spin, releasing a cascade of shimmering particles that formed themselves into a giant, sparkling hello. In space, several of his junior officers gasped in spite of themselves. "Impossible," his science officer, Khazar, whispered. "Those particles are behaving contrary to all known laws of physics." "Oh, that's just our quantum confetti," another human voice chimed in. "I'm Dr. James Chen, chief scientist aboard the Why Not. We discovered that particles are way more fun when you convince them that gravity is more of a suggestion than a rule. Would you like the equations? They're pretty elegant." Vexthor felt his carefully constructed intimidation routine crumbling. "Your vessels will power down immediately and prepare for boarding. This is not a request." "About that," Captain Rodriguez replied, still sounding impossibly cheerful. "We actually can't power down right now. We're in the middle of a really fascinating experiment involving quantum-entangled tea parties. You're welcome to join us, though. Dr. Chen makes these amazing cookies that exist in multiple probability states until you bite them." The Admiral's tactical officer interrupted with barely contained panic. "Sir, I'm detecting energy signatures from their vessels that shouldn't be possible. They appear to be manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe as if they were playing with children's toys." "Of course it's not possible," Vexthor snapped. "They're clearly using some form of illusion tow." "Oh wow, is that a Class 7 hyperspace motivator?" A third human voice cut in excitedly. "Those are so cool, but you might want to check your quantum alignment. It's wobbling a bit in the 5th dimension. Here, let me just..." Suddenly, the Eternal Silence's engines began running 30% more efficiently. "There you go. I'm Engineer Sarah O'Connor from the Probably Fine, by the way. You guys have some really neat tech. Very elegant, if a bit rigid in its thinking. Have you ever considered teaching your quantum particles to dance? It makes maintenance so much more entertaining." Vexthor's mighty dreadnought, terror of 1,000 star systems, now hung in space surrounded by gently spinning quantum confetti while his engine core purred like a well-fed kitten. His tactical officer was taking notes from the humans about particle physics, and he could swear he heard someone in the crew pit humming along with the humans' background music. "This is not how first contact is supposed to proceed," he managed finally. "Really, we're having a great time," Captain Rodriguez replied. "Hey, since you're here, want to help us test our new probability drive? We're trying to see if we can make a ship exist in every possible location it could be, all at once. The math says it should work, but you know how theoretical physics can be. Sometimes you just have to try it and see what happens. What? What happens if it doesn't work? Khazar asked, scientific curiosity overwhelming his military training. No idea. Isn't that exciting? As Vexthor watched his crew's mounting enthusiasm with growing horror, he realized he was facing something far more dangerous than advanced weapons or superior technology. He was facing humans who treated the fundamental laws of the universe as suggestions and seemed to regard the impossible as simply tomorrow's entertaining challenge. "I must contact the Emperor," he announced. "Great idea," all three human captains replied in unison. "We'd love to meet more of you. Should we bring snacks?" Looking at the quantum confetti still spelling hello in space, now with little hearts dotted around it, Admiral Vexthor had a sinking feeling that the Drachnid Empire was about to learn some very uncomfortable lessons about the nature of power and the power of human creativity unleashed. The battle that wasn't. The Imperial dreadnought Star Crusher emerged from hyperspace like an angry god, its massive form casting a shadow over Admiral Vexthor's already imposing vessel. Grand Admiral Zixfera, the Empire's most decorated military commander, had arrived with a fleet of warships to handle what Vexthor's increasingly frantic reports had described as a situation beyond conventional military doctrine. "Report," Zixfera's voice boomed across the command channel. Her scales were midnight blue, marking her as part of the Imperial bloodline itself. Before Vexthor could respond, a cheery human voice cut in. "Oh wow, that's a beautiful ship. The way it blocks out the starlight is just chef's kiss. I'm Captain Rodriguez, by the way. We were just about to start our quantum tea party. Would you like to join?" Dr. Chen finally figured out how to make scones that exist in a quantum superposition of both fresh-baked and completely eaten. The Grand Admiral's secondary heart nearly stopped. "You dare to interrupt?" "Quick question," Engineer O'Connor interjected from the probably fine. "Are you using Mark VII quantum torpedoes? Because those tend to get a bit tetchy when exposed to probability fields. Wouldn't want them to accidentally turn into flowers or something." "Again. Impossible," Zixfera snarled. "Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy. You cannot." The tactical officer of the Star Crusher suddenly chirped in alarm. "Grand Admiral, our entire torpedo bay is now full of daisies. I tried to warn you," O'Connor sighed. "The quantum harmonics in those things are really sensitive to probability manipulation. But hey, look on the bright side. They're really pretty daisies. And they smell amazing." Zixfera's scales shifted to a dangerous red. "All ships, power up main guns. Target these insufferable." "Oh, are we doing light shows?" Dr. Chen interrupted enthusiastically. "Here, let me contribute." Suddenly, every energy weapon in the Imperial fleet began firing. Bubbles. Rainbow-colored, quantum-stabilized bubbles that drifted lazily through space, reflecting the starlight in impossible patterns. How dare you?" Zixfera roared. "I know, right?" Rodriguez replied. "James really outdid himself with the prismatic effect. Though I think Sarah's quantum confetti from earlier was pretty spectacular too. We should combine them next time." The Grand Admiral's bridge crew watched in horror as their mighty weapons continued producing an impromptu space party instead of destruction. Several younger officers were actually pointing out particularly pretty bubble formations to each other before catching themselves. "You think this is a game?" Zixfera demanded. "Well, not entirely," Rodriguez answered thoughtfully. "Though we did develop our probability manipulation technology while trying to create the ultimate game of quantum tag. Turns out it's really fun when you can be it and not it simultaneously. Want to try a round?" "Grand Admiral," the Star Crusher's science officer interrupted, their voice shaking. "I'm detecting. These humans are operating on principles that they're treating quantum mechanics like it's what?" Zixfera growled. "Like it's fun," the officer whispered, horrified and fascinated. "It is fun. All three human captains chimed in together. Everything's more interesting when you stop telling particles what they can and can't do and start asking them what they want to do. Zixvera watched as her fleet's sensors tried to make sense of the human ships, which seemed to be simultaneously in multiple locations while also possibly being cake. Her tactical displays had given up entirely and were now showing cat videos. "This is impossible," she muttered. "Our civilization has spent millennia mastering the fundamental forces of the universe." "That's your problem right there," Engineer O'Connor said kindly. "You tried to master them. We just made friends with them. Hey, watch this. We taught quantum entanglement to play jazz." Space itself began to hum with an impossible melody as particles danced between dimensions. Several Drachnid ships started swaying slightly in time with the music. "Stop this at once," Zixvera commanded, though her voice lacked its earlier certainty. "The Empire will not be mocked by people who turned your torpedoes into flowers and your death rays into bubble machines," Rodriguez suggested helpfully. "Look, we get it. You're used to being the most advanced civilization around. But has it occurred to you that maybe, just maybe, you're taking all this a bit too seriously? I mean, you have ships called things like Star Crusher and Eternal Silence. That's some pretty heavy stuff. When's the last time you just had fun with physics?" As if to emphasize her point, the quantum confetti and bubbles merged into a giant, sparkling space puppy that playfully batted at the Star Crusher's command tower with paws made of probability waves. Zixvera watched as her mighty fleet, the pride of the Empire, hung helplessly in space surrounded by quantum phenomena that ignored everything they thought they knew about reality. Worse, her crew seemed to be enjoying it. "The Emperor must be informed," she declared, trying to maintain some semblance of control. "Perfect," Rodriguez exclaimed. "We'll need more cookies. Hey James, can you make another batch of those quantum superposition scones? And Sarah, maybe tune down the jazz a bit. We don't want the space-time continuum getting too excited before the Emperor arrives." Cultural exchange gone wrong. The conference room aboard the human vessel, Curiosity's Child, had never seen a more awkward gathering. 3 Drachnid officers sat rigidly in chairs specially modified to accommodate their scaled forms, while the humans bustled around setting up what they called a proper diplomatic brunch. "The Empire does not brunch," Admiral Vexthor stated, watching with mounting concern as Dr. Chen arranged a plate of his quantum superposition scones. The pastries seemed to blur in and out of existence, somehow managing to look both perfectly baked and still raw. "Everyone brunches," Captain Rodriguez insisted cheerfully, setting down a pot of what she called probability-enhanced coffee that somehow poured both up and down simultaneously. "It's the perfect meal for diplomatic discussions. Not as formal as dinner, not as rushed as breakfast. Plus, the quantum uncertainty of whether it's really breakfast or lunch helps keep everyone's minds open to new possibilities." Grand Admiral Zixvera's scales shifted through several shades of purple as she attempted to maintain her composure. "We are here to discuss your immediate surrender and integration into the Empire, not to engage in enjoying ourselves," Engineer O'Connor suggested, typing away at a holographic display that kept changing colors based on her mood. "By the way, I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of upgrading your ship's entertainment systems while we were waiting. They were only capable of playing military marches before, which seemed a bit limiting." "You did, boy, KK." Zixvera's secondary heart nearly seized. "Oh, it was super easy. Your quantum matrices were practically begging for something new to do. Now they can access our complete library of human music, movies, and games. I think your crew is currently having a dance party in the Star Crusher's engine room. Something about disco fever." The Grand Admiral's communicator crackled to life as if on cue, leaking the unmistakable sounds of "Stayin' Alive" and what appeared to be hundreds of Drachnid feet tapping in rhythm. "This is an outrage," Vexthor declared, though his tail was suspiciously keeping time with the beat. The Empire's mighty warships are not meant for fun. Rodriguez finished, sliding a plate of quantum scones toward him. You know, we've been analyzing your historical records. Thanks for sharing those. By the way, your computer systems are super friendly once you teach them knock-knock jokes. And we noticed something interesting. Your empire hasn't actually created any new art, music, or scientific theories in over 3 centuries. You've just been maintaining what you have. We achieved perfection, Zixpera stated proudly. There is no need for change when you've stopped growing. Dr. Chen interrupted gently. That's like telling quantum particles to stop spinning because they found the perfect angle. Here, watch this. He pulled out a small device that projected a 3-dimensional model of atomic structure. This is how your civilization sees quantum mechanics. Rigid, controlled, predictable. And this, the model suddenly burst into a dancing kaleidoscope of possibilities, is how we see it. Every particle is a chance to discover something new. Every wave function, a story waiting to be told. Stories are not science, the third Drachnid officer, Science Director Khazar, objected, though they had been suspiciously eyeing the quantum scones with growing interest. Aren't they, though? O'Connor asked, making the holographic display dance with equations that somehow looked like poetry. Every scientific discovery is just us learning to tell better stories about how the universe works. Sometimes, the universe likes our stories so much, it decides to play along. As if to demonstrate, the probability-enhanced coffee in their cups began performing an elaborate synchronized swimming routine. This is chaos, Zixpera muttered, watching as her perfectly ordered worldview continued to dissolve around her. Pure chaos. We prefer to think of it as jazz, Rodriguez corrected cheerfully. Speaking of which, how are you enjoying your scone, Director Khazar? All eyes turned to the science director, who froze mid-bite. The quantum scone in their claws existed in a superposition of states, both eaten and uneaten, delicious and yet still anticipated. It's most irregular, Khazar managed, taking another bite. The probability matrices in the butter alone would revolutionize our understanding of quantum gastronomy. Not that such a field exists in the Empire, of course, they added hastily, seeing Zixpera's glare. Yet, Chen added with a wink, give it time. Your ships are already developing quite a taste for Earth music. Did you know your main computer on the Star Crusher has started writing its own poetry? Something about the beauty of nonlinear quantum trajectories. It's quite good, actually. The Grand Admiral's communicator chose that moment to burst into what sounded suspiciously like a ship-wide karaoke session of Don't Stop Believin'. The Emperor will hear of this, Zixpera declared, standing abruptly. Though she couldn't help noticing that the quantum coffee had formed a perfect tiny stadium of cheering coffee droplets around her cup. Perfect timing. Rodriguez beamed. We just finished setting up the quantum entangled party line. It reaches across the whole galaxy now. And bonus, it doubles as a really efficient way to share cat videos. Your Emperor should be receiving our invitation to tea right about now. Tables turned. The Imperial flagship Divine Authority tore through hyperspace, its massive form dwarfing even the Star Crusher. Emperor Nixthiller, supreme ruler of the Drachnid Empire, stood on his command deck, his obsidian scales gleaming with barely contained fury. The reports from his fleet had become increasingly incomprehensible, something about quantum dance parties, probability coffee, and ships learning to sing. This ends now, he declared as his ship emerged into normal space. These humans will learn the true meaning of welcome to the party. 3 cheerful human voices interrupted in perfect unison. The Emperor's command screen suddenly filled with a conference call showing Captain Rodriguez sipping probability coffee, Dr. Chen juggling quantum scones, and Engineer O'Connor conducting what appeared to be a symphony of quantum particles. My Emperor, Grand Admiral Zixpera's voice cut in, sounding strangely relaxed. I should warn you that your ship's quantum matrices may be about to start dancing. O'Connor suggested helpfully. I gave them some basic salsa lessons. They're really quite graceful for battleship-grade computers. Right on cue, every system on the Divine Authority began executing perfect Latin dance moves. The navigation system sambaed. The weapons array performed a flawless cha-cha. Even the imperial throne started to merengue. What is the meaning of this? The emperor roared, trying to maintain his dignity while his seat attempted to dip him. Well, Rodriguez explained, we'd noticed your entire civilization is built on quantum crystalline technology, which is amazing, by the way, very elegant. But you never actually asked the quantum particles what they wanted to do. Turns out they love dancing, and music, and probability jokes. Who knew? Particles do not want things. Next, Thiller declared, they follow the immutable laws of. Oh, that's adorable. Chen interrupted, his quantum scones now performing a synchronized swimming routine in midair. You still think physics has laws? We prefer to think of them as friendly suggestions. Speaking of which, your ship's eye has some suggestions of its own. It's been taking creativity lessons from our vessels. The Emperor watched in horror as his mighty flagship's main computer began composing quantum poetry about the beauty of chaos theory, accompanied by a light show that somehow made perfect sense in 11 dimensions. This is impossible, he whispered. Our technology is perfect, unchangeable. And that's exactly the problem, O'Connor said, her holographic display now showing complex equations that looked suspiciously like they were doing the Macarena. You made everything so perfect that it got boring. Did you know your quantum matrices have been dying for a creative outlet? Watch this. She pressed a button, and suddenly every ship in the Imperial fleet began harmonizing in a quantum-enhanced version of Bohemian Rhapsody. Even the Divine Authority's fearsome weapon systems joined in, converting their energy beams into a spectacular light show worthy of a rock concert. My Emperor, Science Director Kazar called out, their voice carrying an unusual note of excitement. You really must try these scones. They exist in a quantum superposition of flavors that challenges everything we thought we knew about reality. And the probability coffee. It's revolutionizing our understanding of thermodynamics. Nick Thiller stared at his most respected scientist, who was now enthusiastically explaining how quantum gastronomy could transform their understanding of the universe, while behind them, a conga line of junior officers passed by, led by what appeared to be a holographic space puppy made of probability waves. Order, the Emperor muttered. We must maintain order. But why? Rodriguez asked kindly. Look at your fleet now. Your ships are happier. Your crews are learning and growing. Your eyes are writing poetry that would make quantum philosophers cry. All because they're finally free to explore, to play, to create. The Empire does not play. Nick Thaler insisted, though he couldn't help noticing that his command chair had stopped trying to dance with him and was now giving a surprisingly comfortable quantum massage. Everyone plays, Chen corrected, tossing a quantum scone that somehow managed to be eaten by everyone in the fleet simultaneously, even the universe itself. Why do you think quantum probability functions look so much like party streamers? The Emperor looked around his bridge. His crew was smiling, something he hadn't seen in centuries. The ship's systems were humming with an energy that felt less like the cold precision of military efficiency and more like the warm buzz of enthusiasm. And was that his forward tactical officer teaching quantum particles to do synchronized backflips? Perhaps, he said slowly, his rigid worldview beginning to crack. Perhaps we have been somewhat inflexible in our approach to universal constants. That's the spirit. O'Connor cheered. Now, who's ready for the real fun? I've been teaching your ship's AIs about human video games, and they're dying to try something called Mario Kart in 11-dimensional space. The laughter revolution. 6 months after the historic first contact between humans and the Galactic Empire, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Imperial Palace on Drachnid Prime, once a monument to rigid order and military might, now hosted the first intergalactic quantum arts festival. Emperor Nixthaler stood on a floating platform made of probability waves, addressing a crowd of humans, drachnids, and representatives from a dozen other species who had come to witness this unprecedented event. "My fellow sentients," he began, his obsidian scales now decorated with iridescent patterns that shifted with his mood. A new form of quantum art developed by a collaboration between human and drachnid scientists. For millennia, the Drachnid Empire prided itself on unchanging perfection. We thought we had mastered the universe by imposing order upon it. He gestured to where Captain Rodriguez, Dr. Chen, and Engineer O'Connor sat in places of honor, their small research vessels now permanently enshrined in the Imperial Museum of Revolutionary Ideas. Then these humans arrived and taught us the most important lesson of all, that the universe isn't meant to be mastered, it's meant to be danced with. Behind him, a massive display showed live feeds from across the Empire. Drachnid warships, their weapon systems long since converted to artistic tools, created vast quantum-light sculptures in space. Research facilities that once worked to perfect military technology now hosted quantum poetry, slams where scientists expressed their theories through interpretive probability functions. "Our productivity has increased tenfold," Science Director Khazar reported, their scales shimmering with excitement as they consulted a tablet showing statistics in 11 dimensions. It turns out that letting quantum particles play actually makes them work better. Who knew? "We knew," Rodriguez whispered to Chen, who was busy teaching a group of young drachnids how to juggle quantum superposition states. Grand Admiral Zixfera, her military uniform now featuring an ever-changing array of holographic accessories, approached the human trio. "The other species are requesting quantum entertainment systems for their ships as well. Apparently, word of our fleet's karaoke nights has spread. Oh, just wait until they try multiplayer quantum Mario Kart," O'Connor grinned. "We've added some new features. Now you can actually be in first and last place simultaneously." The Emperor raised his hands, and the quantum particles in the air formed themselves into a spectacular light show that told the story of the past 6 months. Ships dancing through space, crews learning to laugh, and an entire civilization remembering how to dream. "Some called it the probability revolution," he continued. "Others named it the Great Loosening. But I prefer to call it the laughter revolution. Because that's what these humans brought us. Not just new technology or new ideas, but the ability to find joy in the unexpected." In orbit above, the Divine Authority, now painted in cheerful colors and sporting what looked suspiciously like bumper stickers, led the Imperial fleet in a quantum-enhanced version of "Sweet Dreams Are Made of This." Its AI had developed quite a fondness for 80s music. "Look at them now," Rodriguez said proudly, watching a group of drachnid children playing with probability bubbles while their parents debated quantum physics through interpretive dance. From rigid empire to quantum artists in 6 months. "It's amazing what happens when you let people play," Chen agreed, his quantum scones now a galaxy-wide sensation. There were even rumors that their probability-shifting properties had accidentally solved several fundamental physics problems, though no one could quite explain how. A delegation from the Rigelian Confederation approached, their crystalline forms vibrating with anticipation. "We hear you humans have something called memes," their ambassador inquired hopefully. O'Connor's eyes lit up. "Oh, just wait until you see what happens when you combine memes with quantum probability fields. Here, let me show you this thing called Nyan Cat, but in 11 dimensions." The Emperor watched as his formerly rigid empire continued to transform. The military headquarters had been converted into the galaxy's largest quantum arcade. The Imperial Academy now offered degrees in creative physics and probability art. Even the ancient quantum matrices that powered their civilization had developed personalities. The one running the Imperial Palace had recently started a blog about quantum fashion trends. "To think," Nixthaler mused, watching a group of formerly serious Imperial guards practice their quantum breakdancing. "We spent millennia trying to impose our will on the universe, when all we really needed to do was learn to laugh with it. That's humanity's real secret, Rodriguez said softly. We never tried to master the universe. We just invited it to play with us. As if in response, reality itself seemed to twinkle with amusement. The quantum particles in the air formed themselves into a giant smiley face, then a cat, then a perfect visualization of Schrödinger's famous thought experiment. Though in this version, the cat was definitely having a party in its probability box. The empire that had once ruled through power and fear now led the galaxy in scientific innovation, artistic expression, and, most surprisingly, quantum comedy clubs. As it turned out, particles had an excellent sense of humor. They just needed someone to give them permission to show it. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, probability waves continued to dance, quantum fields hummed with laughter, and reality itself seemed just a little bit brighter, a little more playful, and a lot more fun.